In this video, we're going to use Minitab to conduct a hypothesis test for a proportion. We're going to do this homework problem as an example. It says, suppose a recent random sample of employees nationwide who have a 401k retirement plan found that 22% of them had borrowed against it in the last year. A random sample of 95 employees from a local company who have a 401k plan found that 16 had borrowed from their plan. Based on the sample results, is it possible to conclude at the 0.01 level of significance that the local company had a lower proportion of borrowers than the 22% reported nationwide? So first we're going to write our null and alternative hypothesis. Our question here is asking if the local company had a lower proportion than 22%. So that means our alternative hypothesis is that P is less than 0.22. And therefore, our null hypothesis is going to be that P is greater than or equal to 0.22. So I'm going to go with answer choice D. Now we are going to do the test, and there's a reminder here to use a normal approximation. So we're going to go to Minitab. I'm going to go to Stat, Basic Statistics, and 1 Proportion, because this is a proportion problem. Switch to Summarize Data. And now I need my number of events and my number of trials. So my sample found that 16 out of the 95 employees had borrowed from their plan. So my number of events is going to be 16 and my number of trials is 95. I am performing a hypothesis test, so check the box. And my hypothesized proportion is the 0.22 from my null and alternative hypotheses. Next, I click on Options. I don't need to worry about the confidence level. I need to change the alternative hypothesis to match the alternative hypothesis that I have written. My alternative hypothesis is that P is less than 0.22. So that would be proportion is less than the hypothesized proportion. So I'm going to choose that one, change the method from exact to normal approximation, and click OK. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom to find my test results. Here are my null and alternative hypotheses, and then I have my z-value and my p-value. The z-value is the test statistic that my lab is asking for, so that's negative 1.21. And my p-value is 0.112. Now I'm going to compare that p-value to my level of significance in the problem. If the p-value is less than alpha, then I reject the null hypothesis. My p-value is not less than alpha, it's greater than alpha, so I do not reject the null hypothesis. If I do not reject the null hypothesis, that means that I do not have evidence for the claim. So there is not sufficient evidence to conclude that the proportion from the local company who borrowed against their plan is less than 0.22, because that is what I was testing for. So that's how we use Minitab to test a hypothesis about a proportion.